I'm Daryl Urbanski, and welcome to the Best Business Podcast. My mission is to help create 200 new multi-millionaire business owners. How? You'll do better when you know better. In my interviews, you'll hear from self-made millionaires, seven-figure business owners, authors, and world-class experts sharing how they did it so you can too without experiencing the same obstacles they did. Now, if you like this interview, please share it with a friend you think will benefit. They'll appreciate it, and I will as well. You can also connect with me on social media. Look for Daryl Urbanski, D-A-R-Y-L, Urban Ski, U-R-B-A-N-S-K-I, and add me so we can be friends. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy what I've prepared for you right here, right now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Daryl Urbanski, your host as always, and today we have a very special guest, Jacob Sapochnick. And Jacob is an active member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. He's been asked to speak on immigration law topics at various conferences in the United States and abroad. He's done plenty of interviews like this one. He's frequently quoted by newspapers and radio shows on immigration issues. And in fact, he also has a podcast called the Enchanting Lawyer Podcast. I highly recommend you check it out. It's at theenchantinglawyer.com. And Jacob is an immigration lawyer, but he's also an extremely savvy marketer. I asked him to come on the show today after talking to a mutual friend of ours about him and his practice. So this friend and I, we both have worked with a ton of clients, and Jacob isn't my client, but I've done business with him. And one of the things which has really stood out with him and his team is how well he leverages other people, while at the same time treating people like people, but he's able to accomplish a lot of things through others, which is a really powerful thing in business. So, he's very, very skilled at delegating and focusing on the 80-20 in his work, doing only the necessary items and leaving the rest of the task to someone else to see it through. In fact, he kind of has his own method, and he calls it the enchanting way of doing business. He's done this well enough to build a business Facebook fan page up to 117,000 fans, which provides his business, his immigration practice, a steady, predictable stream of leads coming in daily. And now he's got a second business, a coffee shop he's starting up. He's also launching a book, and actually right now he's in San Francisco because he's been asked to kind of partake with a new tech startup and share with them his way of doing business. So it's all part of why I've asked him to be here today and share with us some of his secrets for how he manages people, markets his business, and keeps it all under control. So, Jacob, thank you for joining us, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you so much, Daryl, for this is it's amazing intro. I should be using it now in all my speeches. I love it. Thank you.
I got my eye on you, man.
Yeah. And like you said, I'm here in San Francisco at this beautiful startup tech house, and just amazing energy flowing everywhere. And I'm excited to be on your show.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
And it's beautiful here.
Thank you. So how did you even get started? I mean, you went to become a lawyer, but they didn't teach you business skills in law school, did they? So how did you figure this out? How did you come, what was the beginning like?
The thing is, and what I always tell people is, when there is no tools or information about something that you need, you kind of have to do it, and because you have no choice. And this is really what happened to me, because when I started my own law firm in 2004, I did it because I wasn't happy where I was working, and it was not very easy to find another job. And honestly, I didn't want to find another job. I wanted to do something on my own, and I knew that I wanted to do it on my own. I just didn't know how to. And honestly, for attorneys, there were just very basic tools as to how you market, how you start a practice. Mm-hmm. Everybody was following the same patterns, and most lawyers really were not able to succeed that well, because when you do what everybody else is doing, right, it's very difficult to break through. So I thought to myself, if I made the decision that I want to start my own law firm, I need to also change the way I think about my business. And I shouldn't follow the herd. I should be doing some different things. So I've decided that I'll do everything the opposite from what the other lawyers do in every particular aspect of the business. So in the beginning, 2004, nobody really had a blog. Nobody was blogging. Only the marketers were blogging. So I started one of the first legal blogs in California. It's called the Visa Lawyer Blog, which still exists today, by the way. And this blog I did because I didn't have any clients. I didn't have anything else to do. So I just sat there and wrote some articles twice a week, and nothing happened. And I tried to do the networking in the morning, and then in the evening. And I was paying Yellow Pages the little money that I had But really, we didn't have that many clients. I mean, I really had pretty no clients. But I kept writing. I said, no, if the marketers are writing blogs, maybe there's going to be something there. And just to feel that you're not wasting your time, just for my soul and for my mental wellness, I felt that if I write the blog, so I felt that I'm doing something. And then, 3 months after I started my blog, actually 4 months, I thought nobody's reading it. And then I get a call from Fox News, and they said, we want to talk to Jacob. Yes, this is Jacob. We want you on the evening news. You're the immigration expert. We need you about this new law change. And in my head, I'm thinking, they probably have a mistake because I just started my practice. I mean, there must be a different Jacob. And I said, how did you find me? And he said, we've been reading the blog. We found the blog, and you know what you're doing. And we need you on the show tonight. And I realized that moment that this different thing that I've done, this blog that I wrote, now I was in the evening news, and that changed everything for me because I realized that, by doing this different thing that nobody else is doing, I opened an opportunity for myself to be in the media. And then another newspaper called, and another TV station. Next thing you know, I was on TV more and more often. And blogging, after 2 years, became a common thing for attorneys. And so I said, well, if blogging is a common thing, I got to be doing something different. So I started doing videos. Nobody was doing videos, and I started doing videos on YouTube in 2010. And people start finding me on YouTube. But at the same time, I realized that nobody, literally no attorney, was using Facebook, and I couldn't understand why not. And well, I knew why, because it was just they said things like, it's for kids, it's a waste of time, I don't want to share my personal information, all the myths that you can hear about. And I said, you know what, I'm going to use Facebook because nobody else is doing it. And then literally within a year or so, I kind of cracked the code slowly and we started building our fans. And then, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. Now, like I said, we have 117,000. We have our own proprietary community. And, you know what it means. If you build your own audience, I don't compete with anybody. I mean, we get 4 or 5 leads a day just from that page.
Yep. Which is huge.
Fan.
Yeah, which is huge.
Of course.
In your business, because price points are nothing to in immigration. I mean, you get someone who wants to move over and bring their business in that. I mean, this is
right.
Yeah. So you couldn't 500 leads a day would be insane. Just to put that in perspective for people for law practice, that's very, very very well respected in the world. I mean, that's
yeah. And just to give you an idea, when I'm talking about 4 or 5 leads, I'm talking about 4 or 5 leads that convert either to a paid consultation or to a case. These are the kind of things that we don't have to pay for.
Yep.
And
which is amazing. So, that's amazing.
And this is just from Facebook. YouTube generates a lot of leads for us as well on a regular basis.
Yep.
And it's just been a very, very powerful tool for us. But even to this day, and that's really how I started doing this. But the thing is, once I figured out how to get leads, it became an issue because now that you have people calling you, you don't provide the level of service that they deserve. Right. And that's when I decided that I'm going to perfect the system from within, making sure that the employees are happy, because when they're happy, they're able to provide good service to the customers. And so we started experimenting with different things. I realized that if somebody cannot come to work, it doesn't matter if I'm going to tell them, listen, you have to come to work. If they can't come to work because their child is sick or whatever, then they're not going to work effectively. So why not just let them go?
Right.
So I've decided to start this freedom policy where if somebody cannot make it for whatever reason, they're just not going to make it. They're going to make it up to the time whenever they can, if they want to. So once the employees realize that I'm not there to be a policeman, I'm there as their partner, I ask them, what do you think should be the color of the carpet in this office? And they say, well, we think a red fits. The next day, they get a red carpet because they asked for it and because they suggested it. Right. So that kind of validation tells them that they are working in a law firm that is also theirs, not just mine. And so now I'm able to take off for 2 months in the summer, and the law firm continues to work. And I don't have to worry about it because they're there because they like to be there.
Right. Yeah, you have
amazing
staff. I mean?
So it's not just about getting the leads.
Yep.
It's also about building a system where they can nurture the leads and make sure the clients are happy, because if they're not happy, then nothing works.
So how do you systemize things in your business? How do you do that? Because I know that employee issues is a huge problem for a lot of businesses.
So there are 2 things that you do. And the Enchanting way is based on 3 principles. The first principle is the principle of generating the leads. So you must be able to generate the leads. You have to be everywhere, and you have to provide free, valuable, consistent content all the time. So if you are a law firm, you have to write articles, you have to do podcasts, you have to do videos in a small scale. You don't have to do it. You don't have to go crazy, but you have to do it on a consistent basis. Even if you do one article a week, if you do it every week, you're golden. If you are a pool guy and you have a pool business, you can still create content, videos, articles on a consistent basis for no reason but to serve the public. If you do that, you start going to get leads. Once the leads coming in, you have to be able to set up a system of what happens when the leads come in. So it's all documented. So we use Infusionsoft to direct the leads throughout the different channels. People know via script how to answer the phones. They know what to do when the clients sign in, when to open the file, how to open the file. Everything is in writing. And systemization is not a new concept. But what we did beyond that is that because we empower the employees to take decisions. So, for example, let's say if a paralegal feels that this client should get a discount because this is the right thing to do, she has the power to do it. And by allowing them to do these kind of decisions, first of all, our retention levels went up the roof. And second of all, clients feel more comfortable that people don't have to go and get permission to do stuff. They feel that the firm is working like a machine. And so that's really kind of the way I implemented the threefold approach, where you get the leads, you find a way to nurture them through systemization and service, and then you empower your team to be able to deliver the service without feeling that there's a policeman on top and they are slaves.
That's awesome.
Which most businesses work this way, by the way. The other way.
Right. Sorry, I'm taking notes. I hope people listening are taking notes. I love these.
Yeah.
This is a perfect brain dump.
And Darren, I'll give you an example. It's funny because one of my clients heard about what we do, and they invited me to the business. So it's a company with 400 people, and they're in the printing business. So two of the departments, they had a huge turnover, and he didn't. He said, why don't you go there and help me? And I said, well, I don't know if it's going to work in your business, but so I went there and I spent like half a day. And I realized that the problem in the company is that there was no culture in those departments. There was no system of empowerment. There was one guy who was the manager. He was like the slave driver, and everybody else was working under him. So I told him, what if we do the following? What if we take this manager and assign two other people under him who are going to be able to make decisions? And then we create weekly events between the team. There were 35 people on that team, where we talk among each other, and then we raise ideas. So the manager will say, hey, Bobby, what do you think we should do with our new printing catalog? And Bobby's going to say, well, I think we should do this and this. And actually implement what Bobby says. Let's see what happens. And right now they're implementing this. And I can tell you that he said, listen, I can't believe what happened, but now people are actually happy to come to work.
Right.
Because we listen to them. You know what I mean? So it can work in any business, but you really have to find a way that the employees feel that you care about them, because then once they feel that, then they will go out there and do the same to your customers. Because you can't force somebody to be nice.
Right.
And I think that should be the quote of the podcast. You can't force somebody to be nice. They have to do it because they feel it.
Right. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. That's such an important thing, because I actually just had a conversation with one of my project managers today about exactly that, because we were talking about just a certain person in particular on the team and just troubleshooting, like how do we get better out of them? And I was like, we can't just impose deadlines on this person. They have to have buy-in, because otherwise you can, like, it's that expression, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink. And it's the same thing with your team, right? If they're not intrinsically motivated, I know when I hire people, something I learned from one of my mentors is there's two types of income. There's physical income and there's psychic income. And I always try to make sure that psychic income is there, because if you, at some point, the money's not enough. I remember when I was in Tokyo and I was making $60 an hour, which at the time to me was a phenomenal amount of money. But I couldn't, at some point, it was the work I just needed out. I needed something that would let me express myself and, almost like you're saying, like, be empowered to make decisions, right? And just have fun and be creative in my work. And I still did it to a certain extent, but it was really something I ended up trying to minimize, because the money hit a point where it just wasn't worth it. So I really love that you brought that up, because I think that's so, so, so important, and something that a lot of people have missed. So what are... And
Daryl, you mentioned something very important, because you said the money is not bad, because some people say, well, maybe my employee would have stayed if I paid them $5 more per hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell them that's not the money.
Yep.
And I, we don't pay most people very high salaries. It's reasonable, but it's not the reason why the turnover is almost zero.
Right.
It's because of the fact that they know that if they leave and they go to any other place, they're not going to be able to get the same kind of treatment.
Right.
And they don't feel that they're basically coming home in a way.
Yep.
It's a place where they love to be.
That's awesome. And that's such a great way to say it. So, no, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, Wikipedia, look at Wikipedia. I think I read some stat, and forgive me, I don't have citation, but I read some stat that it was like, a substantial amount, like 40 to 60% of the people that are helping edit and keep Wikipedia up and running have full-time jobs somewhere else. I think it might even be higher than that. So it's like, why are people going to work for 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, coming home, and then they're editing? You know what I mean? Like, why are they doing it? It's because, exactly like you said, like, they enjoy it, and you really need to provide that for your employees. Because, there's people that are interested in everything, right? You put a job out for a sales rep, you're generally going to get someone that's interested in that field to a certain extent, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't really be working for that kind of job. So then it's just a matter of, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, but it's just a matter of creating an environment that these people want to be in, and that nurtures them to kind of grow and be the best that they can be in that career.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Absolutely.
So you were saying that some of like this stuff came out of necessity, that it wasn't that you read anything or you just figured it out and you kept trying to do something different, which is phenomenal to stand out. What other lessons have you learned, and from what have been some of the biggest challenges for you? Because you also do this now with multiple projects, so I know that there's been kind of levels, I guess, that you had to progress through. And what have been some of your biggest challenges?
Right. So I think some of those challenges they come in few folds. First of all, it's learning how to deal with people. This is really the key. That for me, once I understood the concept of how do you read somebody early enough to determine whether he's going to be a good employee for you to hire in the first place, whether it's a good client for you to engage in the first place. How do you deal with people when there's a crisis? So I think this is something that in a small business or a big business, if you need to understand that and really pay attention. So I took a lot of different courses about this, and I was reading books and just to understand how to read people and how to communicate with them in an effective way. And I'll give you an example. If you are a manager of any business, of any team, and if you are not able to assess the personality of the employee that you're working with correctly, it's going to lead to frustration on both sides because you're not really connecting on the same level. And so one of the things that I do is I try to, when I interview people for a new position, I try to ask them different questions. They're not common questions for an interview, but that's legal questions. For example, what is the biggest challenge that you faced in the past few months? And so if somebody tells me a challenge that is something that, for example, I had one of the employees told me, it was really hard for me to come up with money for my rent, and it's really kind of kept me up at night. And that person is still working for me, and she's really, really successful in what she does. But that answer tells me, listen, this is somebody that this is a life struggle, and it really keeps her up at night, and it's important for her, and as opposed to something totally random. So sometimes things like that, small things like that, connect you with people, even if they don't have the skills for the job. It's more important to be a good person in many levels as opposed to somebody who's skilled and coming to you from Harvard, but they have no human connection whatsoever to anybody.
Right. Yeah, they call that.
So for me, that was something important. And then the other thing is really the systemization of the office. How do you know that the system is correct? So I think for me, the biggest problem before is I was refused to change the system, the process, quick enough. And now I learned that if it doesn't work, because people tell you it doesn't work, and you see it doesn't work, change it right away, as opposed to holding to it. So now our systems change. And there, I'll give you a little tool. We use Sweet Process. Have you heard of Sweet Process?
I know Sweet Process. In fact, I hired an intern just to follow me and everyone in my team around to use Sweet Process, and we created an accountability chart. That's a great tool. Yeah. So that's sweetprocess.com.
Yeah, good. Exactly, sweetprocess.com. So the way we use it, we use to document everything that we do, our process. And we do it by recording it as a video. It could be a flow chart, even just regular wording. So it's a very nice tool to create processes and share it with your team. And I highly recommend it if you want to create a thing.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great resource. Do you have any books that you would recommend as well? Because you said that you did courses and read books and stuff like that on how to do this effectively. What do you think are some of the real gems that are out there on the topic?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the books that I really like and I think is amazing is a book by Jay Baer. It's called Utility. Have you read it?
No, I don't think I have, but I will
So
soon.
utility is you should definitely get it. So utility talks about the concept of being a utility as opposed to being a salesman and pushing your stuff. So utility is doing stuff for the sake of doing it. It's marketing so useful, people will pay for it. That's what Jay Baer coined it as. And so, for example, after I read utility, I created two apps. And one app is a green card app, and the other app is a citizenship app, where I have the 100 questions for citizenship, and just people can get the answers and questions in the app. Now, I don't charge for the app, and I've done it just as a utility, just to help people. But once they understand that I created, my law firm created it, indirectly, backdoor marketing, they will come to me as the lawyer that is so useful. We want to pay him to be our attorney. Do you see what I mean? So Utility is an amazing book. It changed the way I think about business.
Wow.
And I think that that's one of those. Another nice book is by a guy named Peter Shanksman. And Peter Shanksman has a book called Nice CEOs Finish First, and it's all about customer service. And I highly recommend it to any business. And have you heard of Peter Shanksman?
No, I haven't. Not Peter Shanklin.
He's a guy from New York. He was a former founder of the Harrow, which is a help a reporter out, which was acquired by AOL in 2007. And he's just an amazing marketer, and he is really a big customer service evangelist. And once you read this book, a lot of case studies in there will jog your mind. And I use a lot of tips from these two books. Another one, which I'm sure you heard of, Gary Vaynerchuk. Who doesn't know him?
Yeah.
And so my favorite book that he wrote is The Thank You Economy. And I think the Thank You Economy changed the way I deal with my business. Have you heard of The Thank You Economy?
Yeah,
it's his second book.
That. Yep.
Yeah, and this is just one of those. Once you read it, you will apply something to your business or to any business. So I think these three books, if you read them, it will kind of change the way you operate your business. And I highly recommend you to read those books.
That's awesome. So the first one was Utility, and can you spell Jay's last name? I'm not finding it online.
It's Baer. Baer. Baer.
Okay, good.
And then
utility.
just Google utility. U as Y-O-U, utility. So it's like utility.
Got it.
That's what it is.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Now I'll find it. All right. That's awesome. Those are great suggestions. No, I love the book stuff. The book, for those of you listening, the book you don't own, you can't read, and the book you don't read can't help you. So the very first step is to own the book. So I'm like a crack addict ordering books all the time. But I mean, even sometimes all I do is, and a lot of books, you don't necessarily need to read them front to back. I'm a firm believer in the 80-20 principle. And so sometimes all you really need is a couple of chapters just to get something from that book, just something. Because even like you hear someone like you who's been very successful and is continuing to have success, and when you recommend something, some sort of source of knowledge, and that's you highly esteem, I mean, there's almost no way that's not going to benefit me, right? So it's just such a smart thing to get yourself that knowledge and education information. So thank you, Jake. That's a great resource. So
now, Daryl, the reason I mentioned those three books in that order is because each one of them gives you different tools and different state of mind. And that's why I recommend to read them in that order. But they're amazing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'm actually searching. There we go. Yes. Jay Baer, Utility, Why Smart Marketing is Not About Help. Why Smart Marketing is About Help, Not Hype. I love that.
Exactly.
That's excellent. So now, What would you recommend to someone? So you talked about like this case study. We saw the manager and the struggle that they were having. What would you recommend to someone that thinks like they're like, all right, I feel like I'm on board with this, and all right, I'm going to order the books. I'm going to like educate myself, but they feel like they're kind of stuck with their team. How do they get their team empowered and on board with the process? How do they? Do you know what I mean? Like, what would you recommend to someone that just doesn't have the slightest clue about building a team?
Right. So I think the process of building a team has different stages. So I think the first stage, when you don't really have the culture in place, you start slow. So the easiest thing to do is by doing little meetings every week with a team. And the meeting style should be very informal. So the idea is that you start a meeting, you talk about, let's say, our goals for the week. And then what we do is you open it up for you open it up for question and discussion. So what do you think we should do? What do you think we should do? And then let's say somebody says, well, how about if we do a happy hour? You have to really listen to what they say and implement some of the ideas. Once you start doing that, you build the trust between you and the team because they feel that you listen to them. And then you can add more stuff. You can do some activities. You can have people in charge of some things. And that's the beginning of empowerment because empowerment cannot happen until there's trust. And trust can only happen once you have to earn it.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Right.
So that's what I would do in the beginning to start. After that, once you have that foundation, there are many things you can do. You can create team leaders that will be in charge of some things, and then others will be under there. And you can create team activities. You can do test trials of projects that they can take on and implement, and hopefully they will be successful and giving critiques. So it's kind of it's like a ladder. You start with number 1, 2, 3, 4. You go up and down and down. You see what I
Love
mean?
that.
But it's a great way to start with the first, but a meeting. The meeting which you open it up and you give them control by validating people in that meeting. And it's amazing how it works, as opposed to you preaching preaching to them, which most people do with those meetings.
Right, yeah. Most times it's like everyone gather around, listen to me talk for 20 minutes. Yep, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And so this is your method, because I actually wanted to ask about that. That's your proposed, like that's how you build the culture, because you hear that talk about that a lot. And even when I had a martial arts school, I knew that the culture was, especially with the competitive athletes, it was so critical. Mindset was such a huge component to our competitive team, and thank goodness like that, if you get the right mindset, you can take people, which one of the things that I did, a little bit of boasting here, I took a student from brand new to provincial champ, 2-time gold medal provincial champ, in 8 months, in less than 8 months, well, just around 8 months anyway. So which is it's a good feat. So, and that's because of, I feel, the culture that we had. So for us, though, I mean, it's kind of, that's what we meet every time to train. But I guess you're saying that's almost what you need to do with your employees. You need to have not even quite the training, but the weekly huddle, the weekly circle. Everyone gets to contribute and share, and you kind of start kind of injecting the culture into them. Now, do you have like the culture written down? Like, is it tangible in any way, shape, or
Yes,
form, or is it just?
yes. So we basically we're working on a book on the subject, and we have some brochures. We have some pamphlets that we use internally, and we're going to make them more available to the public very soon. But yeah, we're working on creating a book. And the whole system will be documented for people, for not just legal teams, but also for other teams to use.
That's awesome.
Because I think there's definitely a need for that. And in fact, I got a very good shout out and a very, very good validation at the last Social Media Marketing World Conference, where 3,000 marketers were gathered in San Diego. And Mari Smith, the queen of Facebook, she came on stage, and in her keynote, she featured what I do, and I was blown away. I didn't expect it. For like 5 minutes, she was talking about my office, our system, and she said that you can't just keep pushing for leads. You have to implement the Enchanting way, just like Jacob does. And I was just like, I said, you know what, this is something that is serious, and we should, really put it together into a system in writing, so others can benefit from it as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and get it out to the world, because, no, you're right. I mean, it's a remarkable thing, and that's, again, part of why, why our mutual friend and I were talking, well, Trek and I were talking about you, and just, and anybody that I know that, and even talking to some of your staff, like I said, it just really comes out. So I know your book's going to be a huge success. So now, do you feel that some of your habits have helped you along this path? Like, what are some of the things that helped you along the way? Because a lot of people probably would have hit some of the obstacles and roadblocks you had and just given up. But, I mean, even, because that's a common thing. I know one of the things that, like, what I recommend some of my clients about testing different prices, and when they're brick and mortar, online it's easier to do, but if they're like a physical business, they're like, well, how do I do that? And it's like, well, it's really easy. You take the next 10 people you have, and you try and sell them at a different price point. That's how you test. That's how you do it. But for a lot of people, they might do it once or twice, and not just that or something else, but they just get nervous because, maybe it doesn't work out really well. And I thought that even when you said like create your team leader and give them a test project, some people might do that and you're like, hopefully they'll be successful. But I already know some people, like clients I have in my head, that they're like, they would do that, they would implement it. The person wouldn't do any, it would blow up in some way, shape or form because it's the first time they're doing anything and they would just give up. But what do you feel are some of the things that you've stuck to as far as habitual, ritual things that are ingrained in you that have helped you be successful like this? Is there anything that you feel like the habits that have helped you become
Yes.
and overcome what you have?
Yes. So first of all, I think that one of the most important things is the ability to listen and be patient. Because the people, they don't like where people are dismissing them and are not and belittling their ideas. So I always had the habit of being patient and listening to people and literally the trying to be nice because you just want to be nice. So sometimes things happen where people cross you, and I had the internal gut feeling to say, no, I'm going to do something mean, and I'm going to bash that person, and I'm going to slam them, whether by talking bad about them or by doing other stuff like that. And I didn't do it. And that ability to stay focused and say, you know what, let it pass. They'll fall down the line because somebody else will realize who they are. But that thing kind of helped because now people are they form this opinion about you. He's a nice boss, he's a nice lawyer, he's good to the clients, and that kind of helps create the alliance around you of employees and people because they feel that with him it's going to be all right. And being this kind of behavior really helped me face a lot of the failures that happened. For example, trying to get a client, didn't work, trying to get this and this. Consistently being, fine, this guy screwed us over, not a problem. We'll continue. I feel that really helped me focus and really pass all these other attorneys that try to be negative about stuff and now they're really behind.
And it sounds like you built an amazing team as well, like just the camaraderie.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. The team has to be built around the same principles because people that are not aligned with this particular principle or that feeling, you don't want to associate with them. You don't want to hire them, and you basically only hire people who are like-minded with you, who are positive, who are effective, and that's really is to me the key to success in that kind of business.
Got it. So your ability to listen,
or any business,
and so you said the ability to listen and patience, and just being able to be nice to others and focus, I guess, on the goal and not really get caught up in drama and anything, because there's always going to be setbacks, right? I mean, nothing's perfect, and that's part of the joy of the pleasure. If it was easy, there'd be no joy in doing it. That struggle. I think we all kind of need it. So. Yeah, well said. So what do you think's been some of the best advice that someone ever gave you? Was there ever a time in your life where you were facing a problem and you had some sort of mentor give you a tip and that just made all the difference?
Yeah. So, one of the things, like I said, I mentioned in the beginning, and it was given to me by a person who is not in the marketing field, is not a famous person, but it's been somebody that I've been trusting over the years. And he said to me a simple thing: do what others are not doing. Do the opposite of people in your field. And that was really a major turning point in my business. Like I told you before, I did different things than other lawyers. And the other thing is, a good advice that I got is don't reinvent the wheel. Basically copy the best things that others are doing and put your own spin on it. Yep. And this has been really effective. In fact, this is something that's something that Bill Dorfman, who is he's the dentist to the stars, and he's somebody I was lucky enough to have on my podcast. He's a dentist to Ozzy Osbourne and Jessica Simpson and all these big guys.
Oh wow!
And he's himself the first guy who was on Extreme Makeover. He's a big celebrity himself. But he said, "Listen, I became successful because I just copy what everybody else is doing. The successful people, I just put my own spin on it, and that's it." And I think people they forget to think like that.
Yeah, I remember, I forget who said it, but someone was saying most entrepreneurs want to keep laying down railroad track. They want to keep building this road to go somewhere else. He's like, I just want to put down a runway of track and run this train back and forth over it. And I think that that's, as entrepreneurs, I think that you hit the nail on the head, that people, they get kind of that shiny object syndrome. Do you know what I mean? They chase things left, right, and center versus just, like you said, just being able to focus and do what's different and just stick to it and make it work and just push through and make the pieces click together. So, Jake, that's awesome. Sorry, my
Exactly.
head's buzzing because you're giving me all sorts of ideas. I love these. I love these podcasts as much as the audience because I get injected. I always take notes. Again, for the listeners, you guys better be taking notes because and again, it's not like none of us know this stuff, but it's just so good to sit and soak in it and hear it again and the reminders and to again see an example. Again, someone like yourself that just does it so well. So that's huge. That's really huge. So all right. So do something. Let's repeat those two again. So the first one was do what others aren't doing, and then the third one. Sorry, what was the second one? I just got so excited about the first
The
one.
second one is don't
Reinvent
reinvent
the
the wheel.
wheel.
Just
Yes.
just basically copy what successful people are doing in your field or other fields. And just put your own spin on it.
Yep. And that's so important too, because if you are going to fail at something, like you were talking about switching systems, you want to fail fast. You don't want to wait and just keep beating this dead horse and maybe I can do it better. Maybe I can do it better. Find out who's doing it the best, copy what they're doing, like you said, in your own image and put it out there. And then if it fails, you know that you know what I mean? Like you gave it your best effort. I mean, you gave it a world-class effort at least. So that's a great tip. That's great advice. What was I about to ask? Wow, I'm having a bad day with memory today. No, that's.
I think it's a good sign, Daryl, because we're having so much good info here. So it's a good thing.
Well, no, but again, I mean, it's teamwork is such a quintessential part of it because there's no way you would be able to juggle all the things that you're doing right now if you weren't able to effectively accomplish things through other people, right? I mean, there's no way you'd be getting recognition on stage. There's no way you would be in San Francisco right now. There's no way you'd be putting your hand into multiple businesses and launching different projects like this. So that's a really powerful skill. Now, I know something that some people are going to say because one of the things that you mentioned, like you built an app and just gave it away for free, right? And I know a lot of people like they're going to be afraid to do that. Like they're going to say, but if I give away, like if I write an article and I teach people how to do what I do for themselves, isn't that going to take business away from me? What do you think about that?
Well, again, it's the concept of the old days where people feel that if I'm going to give away information, if I'm going to hoard information, if I'm going to give it all away, I'm going to be losing business. In fact, by giving a lot of information, what you do is you overwhelm the public by providing so much value that they perceive you as an expert in their subconscious, where there's no other way anybody can convince them not to hire you because they know you're the expert. You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like I put all these articles out there, videos, podcasts, everything, because I really want to help people. I want to give them information so they can read it. I don't even give away free stuff to other lawyers who are my competitors. In fact, Darren, what I'm going to be doing, I'm doing a new experiment, and I'm sharing it the first time in your podcast because I'm happy that you invited me, but I also I think it's an opportunity to do this. So one of the things that are happening right now is we have to work on people's subconscious in a good way because we want to give it to them because people can find information today online, whether you give it to them or not. Think about it. People can find information online today, whether you give it or not, to them or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to do this. I'm going to list my 5 top competitors in my legal field on my own website, and I'm going to tell people, if you decide not to hire me and you ask me who else in your field you would hire if it wasn't for you, I'm going to give it to them. I'm going to give them those people with their website, their phone numbers, everything on my own website. And this is an interesting experiment because I know they're going to find them anyway. Why not tell them? Because maybe somebody's going to say, you know what? If this lawyer is going to give me his competition, what else can he do for me?
Yep.
You see what I mean?
Yep.
So this is the extreme we're going to go to because I believe that by giving it all away, you're just providing more value for yourself because they're going to come to you anyway.
I love that. I think you're right, and not only that, but it elevates you. It really does. It elevates you as a world-class person, a phenomenal character in your industry, because now you're building a network of friends inside the industry, and that's really powerful. And that can, because everybody needs help at some point, and that's again comes back to being an effective being effective with people and being effective working with others. And that's something that I've heard of people doing. If they're in a market, they would do it because these people, they feel that they've not exploited, but they've expanded as much as they can in the market. And now they're like, what do I do? And one of the options they can do is to compete with themselves. And that's because there'll be people that just don't want to do business with you. And in your case, you're like, hey, I already know that there's people that aren't a good fit with me. Why wouldn't I recommend them to someone else? Because that can only benefit, right? Who knows? They'll speak well of me. Even the person you referred, right? They'll speak well of you. It just creates this virtuous cycle of just good, positive, just abundance and generosity and taking care of everyone else. So I think it's brilliant. I think it's going to work out really well. And I think that, like you said, that those people that you referred to, I think they might end up being, useful allies, because none of us know what's up ahead, right? So I think it's important that you have allies, as many as you can. Yeah, that is. And thank you for announcing that on my podcast. It feels special.
Excellent. It should be.
It is. Totally is. So, now, do you ever feel at any point in time you had something holding you back along your way? You've talked about some of the breakthroughs and the things that you've implemented, but do you ever feel that there was anything in particular?
I think that, sometimes when you try to, you work on a project and you feel that you don't get the feedback that you're expecting, and sometimes I do something and I expect it to be huge, or I don't get the feedback that I expect. Mm-hmm. So it really kind of brings me down. And in the beginning, I was really taking it bad. I was actually kind of being discouraged from doing things. And I learned over the years to basically look at it and say, you know what, I tried, it didn't work, let's move to the next thing. But for me, the perception in my head that it's going to work and then it doesn't work, it was actually making me feel really bad for months and slowing me down. And so I learned over the years to stop doing that. But I know a lot of other people are doing it. It's kind of you build in your head this image of how it's going to be, and it's not. And so and that leads to kind of failure and slow down and bad mood. And if you don't feel good about how you feel, then you can't actually do anything because you don't feel that that you can do it. In fact, there's another book that I wanted to mention and I forgot, but I'm going to mention it now because it fits this particular moment. There's a book by James Altucher. It's called Choose Yourself. And James Altucher, if you haven't heard of him, he's a very interesting guy. He's an author in New York, and he was my first guest on the podcast.
Oh, wow.
And the Choose Yourself movement is basically talking about if you don't choose yourself, if you don't love yourself, if you don't feel a particular way about yourself, nothing else will work around you, in a nutshell. And he has different things, different examples of his failures and other things that he talks about in his book. But one of the things that he mentions in the book is every day write down 10 ideas every day, even if you're not going to use them. It's basically the process of training your brain, kind of like you lift weights. Mm-hmm. And both me and you, we come from the martial arts world. I mean, you've been a teacher and an instructor. I've been a practicing Taekwondo member for about 8 years. Awesome. But what we learn in martial arts is the continued. We do always the same things, all the same movement. We practice until we make it perfect, right? Mm-hmm. Always the same forms, always the same. And think about it. What if you do this with your brain? What if you write down every day 10 ideas? Since I read the book, I do it every morning. 10 ideas. And by the way, the coffee shop concept came from this practice. By the way, from doing this. This idea of the coffee shop that I have,
It was one of your
every
daily
day,
ideas?
Write down 10 ideas. And you may not even do any of them, but one of those ideas, one of those 100, is going to become your next venture, your next thing. And so, and it's amazing what it does to your head. Mm-hmm. It's like a muscle, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of lifting weights every day, what if you write down 10 ideas in addition to the lifting weights?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because that's huge. Because that's where people get stuck because they can't think of this new solution. They lack the creativity. So it really is. And that's and that's such a powerful thing because again that goes back to the habits, and that's I remember Jim Rohn. I love Jim Rohn. I quote him all the time, but one of his things is the benefit of setting a
Right.
goal is not only accomplishing the goal, it's who you have to become to achieve it. And so just even like you
Exactly.
said, writing the 10 ideas a day, like you said, you're not even might not even use them, but the goal by
Oh
setting
yeah,
that goal.
I don't use any of them actually. I mean, like I said, I only use maybe one or two over a period of a few months. But the fact that I did it every day,
Hmm.
that actually helped me get there, right?
Yep, yep. And consistency is important too. I know talking about
Correct.
martial arts, one of my favorite quotes about mastery is do it until it becomes dull and then do it until it becomes beautiful again. And that's how you achieve mastery in something. I love that. I love that quote. So no, I love that. And yeah, just every day, every day, every day. That's the other part that as well that I'm a firm believer in that comes from martial arts is that the things that I want to be good at, I no days off. Like I don't really believe in days off. And if you do take a day off, it's
Right.
intentional rest to improve myself at that because rest is something that you also require, right? So, but it's not in my head like, oh, I don't want to do it today. Like that's just not an option. And no matter how lazy I
Right.
feel or whatever, every day, every day, every day. And like you said, it can make you just help expand your creative thinking. I'm going to start doing that. I am. I'm going to start doing
Yeah.
the 10 things a
Try
day.
it. Let me know how it works.
I will. I will. I will. Well, and let's talk
Exactly.
about some of the ideas that you've had and some of the things that you've got going on. I mean, what are you excited about now? What are you doing now that's got you really jazzed? I mean, obviously this tech thing's pretty exciting, the book, the Enchanting podcast, but why don't you tell me a little bit about what you have happening and that you're most excited about?
Well, like I said, I told you that we're thinking about creating a co-working space for attorneys that are going to be able to share these ideas that we develop right now. What we just talked about right now, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
kind of like for startups, but mostly for attorneys, and take it to the next level by actually coaching them in our system and seeing the results right there as they work all together, which it has never been done before, right? So it's a project I'm working on right now, and I'm trying to figure out a space. It will be a physical location. And then the other thing is, I told you about it before, is that the new coffee shop we're talking about, which is it's the inspirational coffee shop where people are taking their inspiration from online, and bringing it to the offline, spreading happiness.
That's
So
awesome.
that's our concept with the and again, that came out from those 10 ideas that I was doing every morning.
Really, eh? That's so cool. Jacob, this has been a very awesome podcast. It's been so content rich. You've given a ton of really valuable information. This is definitely one of the interviews that we have that people want to listen to a couple of times to make sure they get everything they can out of it. And as always, you want to make a list of things that you need to do and things that you can delegate and things you can implement in the next 24 hours because, wisdom on its own, what is it? It's not just wisdom, you need action. And so that's where we want to take the knowledge that we've gained and turn it into actionable steps that you can apply for yourself and in your business. Jacob, if anyone wants to reach out to you and get in touch with you, what are the best ways to get in touch?
So the best way is to email me at jacob@enchantinglawyer.com. Visit enchantinglawyer.com, our blog and podcast. And I'm on Twitter at Visa Lawyer Blog. At Visa Lawyer Blog is the best ways. And I welcome emails, and I'm very happy to respond to anybody who listens to the show.
That's awesome. Jacob, thank you so much. Again, you've been a wonderful guest and you've been very helpful for me, and I appreciate and value our friendship. And I know that you've got a lot going on, and I appreciate you taking the time today to sit down and talk with me and my listeners. You've reached the end of our interview. Now, first, let me thank you for listening. I appreciate and respect you more than you'll ever know. And now I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. First, what 3 lessons did you just learn? What 3 aha moments just jumped out at you? Second, what can you implement for yourself and your business in the next 24 hours? Third, what can you give to someone else to help you with or give them to just do it for you? Whatever it is, remember taking action is the secret sauce to results. Now, if you think this interview would be helpful for a friend, please give them a link to it. It'll help them and it'll help me too. I'd also like to invite you to help me find out more about the challenges you're facing, your dreams, your goals, and how I can help you overcome what's holding you back. We both do better when we know better, and your success is my success. So please reach out and interact. You can visit our website, bestbusinesscoach.ca for Canada or California, where I'm from and where I'm living. You're welcome to also try out one of our paid programs. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and pretty much every other social media channel you can think of. You should also subscribe to the podcast, and if you're enjoying them, please leave us a nice review. It really helps. That's all for now. Once again, thank you. Take care of yourself, and remember, the world needs the best business you can build. And I believe in you.